If 5 is an element of the domain, so that means that if x is 5, then what is the corresponding element of the range? What is y? So 7 times 5 minus 22 divided by 4. 7 times 5 is 35. 35 minus 22 is 13. 13 divided by 4 is 3.25. 2. An antibiotic is introduced into a colony of 12,000 bacteria during a lab experiment. The function below can be used to model the number of bacteria in the colony after n minutes. Which value is closest to the amount needed for the population of the colony to drop to 8,000? So this is when this would be equal to 8,000. You could do this a couple of different ways. I suggest going to your calculator and type in this the equation function it gives you into y1. Using an x instead of an m, and in y2 typing in what you want it to be equal to. You can look at the graph, but you have to change your window. You can also look at the, because you're going to see I just take graph and it doesn't show it. If you look at your table, you can look for which of these make these two the closest. So our first one is 8 minutes. No, they're not close. 11, no. 25, yeah, pretty close. And 42, I can see that it keeps going further away, so that one is going to be 25. Evaluate the table below. What is the domain and range of the given function represented in the table above? Okay, so we can see that it can't be equal to 0. Our y, whenever we plug in an x equal to or less than 0, we're not going to get an answer. We are going to get an answer right above 0. So that would be our domain is greater than 0. Our range, the smallest range that we have is getting very close to 2, so that would be our y is greater than 2. So x is greater than 0, y is greater than 2. That is choice D. Number 4, students in Algebra 2 class were asked, what are the similarities and differences in determining the domain of the function and the range of a function given its graph? Which of the following students' responses below is incorrect in answering the question above? So what is the similarities and differences in determining the domain and the range? Both require you to evaluate the graph compared to an axis. That's true. The difference is when you determine domain, you focus on the y-axis. Domain is the x-axis, and range focuses on the x-axis. That is false. Domain and range can have a starting point and a stopping point. That's true. However, they do not always have both. That is true. Both require you to evaluate the graph compared to an axis. The difference is that you're evaluating the domain requires you to look at the horizontal, and range requires you to look at the vertical. That is true. Both require you to evaluate the graph to compare to an axis. The difference is that when you're determining the domain, you focus on the x-axis. That's true. Range, y-axis. That's true. So F is the answer for this because it asks which one was incorrect. Number 5, Texas Parks and Wildlife biologists are concerned that the 8,000 acres in a state park will soon be overrun with deer. 50 deer were first introduced in the park in 1990. 10 years later, so at time 0, there were 50 deer. 10 years later, so that'd be time 10, there are 150 deer. The biologists know the carrying capacity of the park is 1 deer for every 10 acres, and the growth will continue as modeled in the exponential growth function. Predict the year in which the park will reach its capacity. So we're going to go to stat to make a function for this. So I'm going to have and I'm going to look at an exponential regression. Okay, now this is my function. I know that there's 1 deer for every 10 acres. Okay, so 1 deer, 10 acres. And I know that the park is 8,000 acres. So that means that there's only going to be 800 deer. So I need to know when this gives me 800. I can solve it using my calculator. I can also solve it because I can change it to a log. So I'm going to do it that way. So I'm going to divide by 50. 800 divided by 50 is 16. So 1.116 to the x is equal to 16. Then I'm going to change this to a log. So I'm going to have x is equal to log base 1.116 of 16, which I would type in my calculator as log of 16 divided by log of 1.116. And that gives me 25 years. So about 25 years from 1990. So 1990 plus 25 gives me 2015, and it's 0.26, so that's going to be 2016. Mr. Yost purchased a computer for $1,750. The depreciating value of the computer over time can be represented by the recursive formula 1312.5, and A of n is equal to 3 to the 4th times the previous term. Which equation can be used to model the V of t? So this is my A naught. This is my initial value. So I can mark off F and H, and then I know that this is an exponential growth, so it's going to be 1,750 times, and this 3/4 is my base, so that's going to be G. Number 7, the function R of m is equal to 1,024 3 over 2m models a projected first-year revenue from an office assistant service, where R of m represents the total revenue and m is the number of months. Predict how many months it will take for the revenue to reach 59,049. Okay, so I need to go to, I can do this 2 different ways. 59,049 equals 1,024 to the 3 over 2 m. Okay, graphs and tables, the table is going to give me an approximate answer. I'm going to solve this algebraically. So I'm going to divide by 1,024. Gives me 57.665 is equal to 3 over 2m. Then I'm going to change this to a log. So I'm going to have log base of 3 over 2 of 57.665 is equal to m. So when I put that in my calculator, I'm going to have log of 57.665 divided by log of 3 over 2. And that gives me 9.999, which I'm going to round to 10. That's going to be 10 months. So it's a positive 10. All right. 8. Biologists for the CDC are collecting data to analyze the growth patterns of a new species of bacteria. She begins with a petri dish containing one bacterial cluster, makes observation and records the data in the table below. Which regression model best represents the number of bacteria clusters in terms of elapsed days? You can do this one a couple different ways. I think it is easiest to type these functions into y equals and then see which table is closest to what she's got. So I'm going to type 46.37 x minus 48.76, 6.14 x cubed minus 26.35 x squared plus 31, oh, I'm still up in the exponent, minus 26.35 x squared plus 31.99 x minus 1.52. Y3, 19.70 x squared minus 52.11 x plus 16.89. And Y3, 1.01 times 3.07 to the x. Then look at your table. I'm going to go my table set at 0. So 0, y1 is at negative 48. That's not going to work. Y2 is at negative 1, and then at 1 it's at 10. That's not going to work. C, 0 is at 16.89, and then 1 is at a negative number. That's not going to work. D, 0 is at 1.01, yes. 3, yes. 9.5, that's pretty close. 29, that's pretty close. 89, yes. 275, fairly close, so that one is going to be D. That's the easiest way. Whenever they give you a set of functions like this, you can type them in and see which ones matches the table. Consider the data table for the function. What is the table for the inverse? Remember, with your inverses, you just switch your x and y's. One section of a children's playground is to contain various geometric solids on which the children can climb and play. The surface of each solid will be covered in different colors of plastic laminate, and all solids will have a height of 1 meter. The surface area can be represented by this function. And that minus 0.5 goes with this, where R represents a radius in meters, and A represents the square meters of laminate needed to cover the surface. If the radius is 3, about how many square meters of laminate will be needed to be covered? So you can have 3 is equal to square root of 4a plus 2 pi divided by 8 pi. Okay, you can work this out. Another way of doing this would be to work this problem with, one of these has to be A. So you could just plug these in and back solve this to see which one of those is going to be your answer. I'm going to show you how to do this mathematically, but back solving is always a possibility. They give you 4 answers, one of them has to work. So I'm going to square both sides. That gives me 9 is equal to 4a plus 2 pi divided by 8 pi. Then I'm going to multiply both sides by 8 pi. That gives me 72 pi is equal to 4a plus 2 pi. Subtract 2 pi. So 70 pi is equal to 4a. Divide by 4. So 70 pi divided by 4 is 54.97. I forgot this minus 0.5. I should have moved that over before I squared it. So that would be 3.5 squared. So 12.25 is equal to 4a plus 2 pi divided by 8 pi. Multiply this by 8 pi. Gives me 307.876 is equal to 4a plus 2 pi. Subtract 2 pi. $301.593 is equal to 4a divided by 4. 75.39, which is going to be closest to G. Number 11, what is the solution to the cube root equation shown below to the thousandths? Okay, so that's going to be 3 decimal places. So subtract 15. 2 cubed root of x minus 3 is equal to negative 5. Then I'm going to divide by 2. Cubed root of x minus 3 is equal to negative 2.5. Then I'm going to cube both sides. X minus 3 is equal to negative 2.5 cubed. It's negative 15.625. Add 3 to that. X is equal to negative 12.625. So negative 12.625. Number 12, given the base of log 2 logarithmic function log base 2 of x, a student was asked to write an equation of the function after a reflection over the x-axis and a translation 5 units left. Which one of the following would be correct? So log base 2 of x minus 5 is going to move it left, and if I put a negative out front, that's going to be my x-axis reflection. So that is A. Number 13. At the beginning of last year, Juan found 8 frogs in his pond. Juan counted again on the same date for the next 3 months and recorded the data for the total population in the table below. Which answer choice shows the correct exponential recursive formula for Juan's table? So f of 1 is going to be his first value of frogs, which is 8. So we can mark off G and J. Now I need to know, well, what am I multiplying by each time? So 12 divided by 8 is 1.5. 18 divided by 12, 1.5. 27 divided by 18, 1.5. So each time I'm multiplying by 1.5, which is going to give us H. Number 4. Lillian's dream of a college education can't be realized that the money in her trust fund will cover her required college cost of $82,250. Her grandparents put in $20,000 into the trust when she was born 16 years ago. If the trust earns 8% interest compounded continuously, will she have enough money to pay for college? So continuous compounding is A is equal to P E R T. P-E to the R-T. This is on the board in the classroom. It's on your left. So her amount is equal to her principal, which is $20,000. E to her rate as a decimal, so 8% is going to be 0.08. Times her years, which is 16. So 20,000 E to the 0.08 times 16, and she would have $71,932.79. So no, she doesn't have quite enough money. Oh, by the time she turns 18, read the full question right there. So I need to change my time to 18. Yes, she'll have $84,413. Talisa is planning and preparing for an exam in Algebra 2. She knows she'll be expected to determine if two functions are inverses using compositions of function. Which composition should you use to prove f of x and g of x are inverse functions? Well, f of g of x has to equal x, and g of f of x has to equal x. So that is going to be H. Number 16. Which of the following problems might best describe an appropriate case where the exponential model 2000 times 1 plus 0.05 to the x would be changed to 2001 plus 0.05 to the x plus 5,000? In an outdoor pen, Lottie's Chicken Ranch has 2,000 adult chickens whose number is growing at a rate of 5% each month, so we're good for this. Then she buys 5,000 male chicks to put in an indoor chicken house. What will be the total number of chickens in Lottie's Ranch in 5 months? It's a pretty good possibility. Benny visits Yellowstone National Park where he's told that a herd of elk numbered 2,000 and were increasing at a rate of 150%. That would be 1.5, so that's not going to be it. Harry initially invested $2,000 with 5% simple interest rate for X years. His friend Bob has 5,000 to save, but also invests 2,000 at 5% simple interest for 5 years. What will be the total amount that Bob has in his account after X years. So simple interest would be if we had principal times rate times time. So that would be the 2000 times 0.05 times t. We don't have that. We have this in the exponent. Lemuel had 2000 which he invested in an account earning 5% on the number of years. His Aunt Trudy gave him 5,000 which he added to the money in his original account. What will be the total amount of money in his account in X number of years? He added that to the original account, so that means that money will also earn interest. So F is our correct answer. Number 17, what is the inverse of this? All right, so to find the inverse, we switch to x and y, so x is equal to 1/2 log base 3 of y. Then I'm going to get rid of this 1/2, so I'm going to multiply by 2. So 2x is equal to log base 3 of y. Then I'm going to change it to an exponential. So this becomes my base. So I have 3 to the 2x is equal to y. So that is f. Which of the function below is an inverse function of this? Same thing. X is equal to 2 to the y plus 1. Change it to a log. So I have log base 2 of x is equal to y plus 1. Then I subtract 1, which is going to be this A. 19. Which statement best describes the asymptotic behavior of the function log of x? So log of x is going to look like this. It has a vertical asymptote at x equals 0. Number 20. Which symmetry is best represented by this function? So if I go to y equals, clear these out. This function is also on the front board. And the cube root, I can get the cube root by going to math and choosing number 4. Alright, rotational symmetry of 90 degrees. If I rotate it 90 degrees, doesn't look the same. Reflectional symmetry in the x-axis, so if I flip it upside down, doesn't look the same. Reflectional symmetry in the y-axis, so if I flip it over here, doesn't look the same. Rotational symmetry of 180, if I flip it all the way upside down, does look the same. That is D. Which of the following represents the domain and range of square root of x? Square root of x, you can type in your calculator. You can also look it on the board. It looks like this. So I know x can be equal to 0. I can take the square root of 0, and that is 0. So x is greater than or equal to 0, y is greater than or equal to 0. This doesn't work. This doesn't work. These don't work. My correct answer is G. A cubic function is shown below. Which attributes does the function not exhibit? So 2x minus 3 cubed minus 16. Oh, minus 16 is down on my next line. I'm going to go to my window. I'm going to look from negative 20 to 20. Alright, rotational symmetry on the point negative 3, negative 16, that would be over here. So that wouldn't work. Domain of negative infinity to infinity, yes. Range the same, yes. X-intercept at 5. So at 5, yes, it has an x-intercept. Y-intercept of negative 70. So at 0, it's at negative 70. That is true. So F is the one that it does not exhibit. A log function is shown below. F of x is equal to 3 log of x plus 5 plus 2. Which attribute does not describe the graph of this function? 3 log of x plus 5 plus 2. Zoom 6. Alright, so a domain from negative 5 to infinity. So let's look at trace negative 5. No, because it can be less than negative 5. Range from infinity to infinity. Now it kind of looks like it stops, but it actually keeps going down, but it's just getting really, really close to negative 7 right there. So that's going to be true. Y-intercept of approximately 4.1. So at 0, it is at, hold on, that's my problem. I have an extra parentheses. Let's go back and look at this. Okay, so -5. Yes, that one is true. Ranges from negative infinity to infinity because it gets really close to -5, but it doesn't touch it. Y-intercept of 4.1, so at 0, it is at 4.1. Asymptote of x equals 5. Well, that would actually be a -5, so that is going to be D. Remember, on this test is going to be 20 questions, multiple choice. You can use a calculator on the entire test. There will be one question that is not multiple choice.